Hey guys, and welcome to the Zurich Review. I'm Karen, and today I'm gonna show you my top 10 books that I've read in 2017. I've had a really good reading year. It was the first year in a really long time that I actually made reading a priority, and I ended up reading 40 books, which I'm really happy with. To be more exact, I've read 40 books, as I said. Only five received a 5-star rating from me, but you have to know that I'm kind of very selective about which books I award 5 stars to. So I've had only 5 of them this year, but that's fine because these were absolutely amazing. But then I've got 20 books who received 4 stars, which is also, I love books when I give them 4 stars. I think they're really good books, and I loved and enjoyed reading them very much. It's just, there was a tiny little something that was missing, like for it to be a 5-star read, but I still loved it. So I've got 20 of those, which is great. Then I've had 12 3-star reads, and luckily only 3 2-star reads. Nothing below that, so like the worst rating I gave was 2 stars, and I've had only 3 of these. So generally I'm quite happy with what I chose to read, because most of the books I really liked and didn't regret reading them at all. So let's get into my top 10, shall we? I'm gonna start with number 10, and then working my way up to my top 5, and then to my final awesome best book of the year kind of thing. Let's start with number 10. In 10th place, I've got 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. You might know that I've just read this for the Holiday Adventure-a-thon, so it's quite fresh in my head still. And it's about 2 women who live in Afghanistan during the war, and they're both forced to marry a man they don't really want to marry. And it's a very sad story of violence and women who have no agency because of the society they live in. So these women, they have nothing to say, they're not allowed to do many things, they're fully dependent on their husbands, and that's the kind of story this is. It's really sad, but I think it's also very important to read about these things, because it was written in, I think, 2003, so not so long ago. These things were actually happening in our world, and they're still happening around the world. And it's just so important to know, for us who live in such a privileged society here, where women have rights, women can do as they please. It's just so important to know that we can take none of this for granted, because it hasn't always been this way. It's not like this in many places in the world. So this was just an absolutely important read, and it was fantastic. And the writing is great. It makes you, usually I'm a bit kind of critical about men writing female protagonists, but Khaled Hosseini did really well. Characters are well rounded. I can stand behind them as a woman, so I think they're authentic women, which is probably hard to write for a man, but he did a really great job in this, and this book just absolutely deserved the 4 stars I gave it. And yeah, it was just awesome. In 9th place, I've got Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. This one I read as an ebook quite a while ago, and I read it because it was on the Banging Book Club reading list. It was awesome, I have to tell you. I've not heard of the author before. I think it was her debut novel. I just know that she's kind of a journalist for Authors Rattle, which is this lesbian website. I'm gonna link that down below. And her book was just fantastic. It's a YA coming of age, coming out kind of story, which also deals with racism and feminism and these kinds of things. Juliet she's a Puerto Rican girl who lives in the Bronx and who's a lesbian. And it's really this classic coming of age story in that way, that she's coming to terms with who she is, who she's in love with, but it's also much more than that, because it talks a lot about feminism, about kind of the issue of white feminism, or feminism being a really white thing, where white women are still privileged over black or brown women, if you want to say so. And it really addresses some important issues, and it's just a really good read. It's a quick read as well, and it's just worth it. So read it if you like YA coming of age things with a bit of an edge to it. Do read it. In place number 8 we have How to Build a Girl by Kathleen Moran. That was also a banging book club read. I usually like those a lot. How to Build a Girl was my first book by Kathleen Moran, and similarly to Julia Takes a Breath, it's got a lot to do with feminism and becoming a woman. It's also kind of a coming of age story, even though, you know, the protagonist is just different because she's like this chubby, poor British girl who just, you know, tries to find her place in the world, which is why she invents herself in a new way, gives herself a new name. She calls herself Dolly Wilde, even though she's actually called Johanna, I think. And then she, you know, she kind of creates this character and wants this character to become the woman she wants to become. It's just a sweet book. It's also, you know, Kathleen Moran, as far as I know, usually is quite funny. This book is really funny as well. We're getting to place number 7, which goes to The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Now, I have just finished this book like a week ago, and I adore it so much. I just want to hug it. It's awesome. I know it's come out in 2003 and it's been quite hyped, so I'm really late to the party. Sorry about that. But I have just fallen in love with this book. It's so sweet. It's about a boy who has Asperger syndrome, and it's just so sweet. You know, it's about him. Actually, it's about him growing up as well, and growing and learning how to deal with his mental illness. But it's a lot more than that. It's about trust and family, and you know, it's disguised as a murder mystery novel because Christopher, the protagonist, finds a dog murdered in the lawn of his neighbor, and he makes it his quest to find out who killed this dog. And in this quest of finding this out, he's also learning a lot about himself, about his family, about love and friendship and trust. And it's just beautiful. I love it. It's awesome. Next up, and in 6th place, I have Sliminess Boot by Alex Capus. This one is in German because Alex is a Swiss author, and I cannot show you this book right now because I've sent it to a friend in Germany to read, so it's not here. But anyway, it's the favorite book in German I've read this year. So if I were to make a German top 10 list, this one would be in first place. It's just, you know, kind of a love letter to life. Reading this book makes you happier just because it's just cute and awesome. And it's about a couple who have been married for I don't know, maybe 25 years, and you know, their life is actually quite, if you want to say, boring or normal. But you know, within the book, the wife goes to Paris for a year to be a teacher there, and which is a huge change for the husband because he's gonna stay here in Switzerland. But during the time that she's away, he realizes that he misses her very much, that he loves her very much. But he also realizes that he loves his life as it is. He's just happy in his life as it is. And I think this kind of happiness is something, you know, trying to be grateful about the little things and enjoying the little things in life, like a conversation with his regular customer or whatever. It's just, I think this is something that we lose sometimes. We wanna do more, see more, visit more places, visit more people, do all of these things, but in the end, the things that make us happy, sometimes they're right before our eye. And I just like this mentality because this book, it really opens your eyes, and it kind of, you know, it tells you to just open your eyes and see what's in front of you, and then treasure that and enjoy the little things in life because it will make you happier. Now we're getting into the top 5. It's getting interesting. In 5th place, we have Asking for It by Louise O'Neill. I have talked about this book already because it's absolutely brilliant, even though I was kind of at a loss of words because it's hard to describe, and it's gripping and just very, very good. And also, like The Thousand Splendid Suns, this is just a very important read because it deals with issues like rape and alcohol and partying and about consensual sex, especially in an environment that involves alcohol or maybe even drugs. Because this girl in this book, Emma, she gets raped after a party, after having too much alcohol at a party. As a reader, sometimes you catch yourself thinking, oh, but she had so much alcohol, she was wearing a really short dress, was she asking for it? No way, no one is asking to be raped. But this book, like, Emma, the main character, is thoroughly unlikable, and I think the author has made her this way on purpose because it really makes you question, like, who do you side with in the end? Absolutely important, though shocking and sad, but you have to read it anyway. It's like, it's a necessary evil to read this book. In fourth place, I've got a similar book, kind of, which is Nina is Not Okay by Shappi Khorsandi. Nina, the main character, is not only like this girl who likes to party, who likes to drink alcohol, who likes to have sex, but she's also actually an alcoholic. Like, she's actually drinking too much and doesn't have control over her drinking anymore, to the point where she's being sent to a clinic to recover from her alcoholism. So it's kind of the same themes, but coupled with alcoholism a bit stronger, which I think is also like very important, because even young people, there are young people who are alcoholics, and sometimes we just forget, and we also forget that alcohol can actually make you addicted. So I think it's important to talk about this as well, and about the consequences this can have on people. Another difference to asking for it, and maybe the reason I like it a bit better, is, you know, Shappi Khorsandi, the author, is a stand-up comedian as far as I know. So it's a very serious book with serious issues, but it's funny, you know. The main character is kind of funny, some of her family members are funny, and I just really like this way of talking about serious issues but not making it like super depressing. So you can still, you know, enjoy the read, have a fun time reading it, but still have something deeper to think about. That's what I really like in books, and Shappi Khorsandi did a really good job with that in Nina is Not Okay. Now we're getting into the top 3. It's getting more and more exciting. In third place, I've got another ebook which I read, which is, surprise, surprise, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This one just came out recently. I think it's the only book I read in 2017 which was actually released during this year. It just came out in September, I think, and it's been all over BookTube. Everybody loves it, and so do I have to admit. It's really, really good, believe me. So, I mean, it has LGBT issues. It's a YA book. It's kind of all I ever wanted. But here the two protagonists are boys, Rufus and Matteo, and they live in a kind of near future world where there's a company who knows who is going to die when, and they're going to inform you on the day that you're going to die, so that you can like make the most out of your last day. And Rufus and Matteo meet on their last day, and it's just a story of how they treasure their last day and try and live life to its fullest together. And it's also about their friendship and a bit more than that, and it's just beautiful, you know. It's very, very sad. I kept crying a little bit here and there throughout, but yet in the end, for me, the happy and beautiful part of the story was bigger than the sad part. I mean, of course it's very sad because they are actually going to die in the end, but you know, you learn so much about these two boys building this friendship in a really short time, and just, you know, being so different and yet being such good friends. And it's just beautiful how they spent their last day together. And yeah, the second best book I read in 2017 might come as a surprise to some. It's Carol, or The Price of Salt by Patricia Highsmith. And This is a rather old kind of book if you like compare it to the others, because I usually tend to read contemporaries. This was published in 1952 and it is also set in the 1950s in New York, and it's about two women who fall in love in New York at that time. And as you might imagine, it wasn't as easy back then as a lesbian couple, you know, because Carol, the older woman, is just going through a divorce, and the fact that she has these relations with other women eventually costs her the custody for her child. So she kind of loses her child because she loves women, which I think says everything. Now, there are people who don't like this story as much because they find it kind of boring or whatever. I didn't find it boring at all. I find it very nice and beautiful, especially because Therese, the younger woman, she's only 19 when she meets Carol and falls in love with her, and the book is told from her perspective only, exclusively, and I think that's very, very interesting, and I think that's why I like the book so much, is because, I mean, one big aspect of the story is of course the love story between these two women, but another very important aspect, which is maybe sometimes overlooked, is Therese growing up and becoming a woman who knows what she wants and who she is and whom she loves. Because in the beginning, Therese meets Carol and she falls head over heels for her. And you as a reader, you go like, oh my god, this is so like cheesy, and you don't believe the love in the beginning because they're just like, they meet and they, you know. But in the end, it's actually Therese who kind of rejects Carol when she finds out Carol isn't everything in her life, that she's like grown up to be a woman who is independent, wants to be independent, and she wants her independence as well. And she learns that during the course of that book, which I think is great, and that's why I love this book so much. Also, it's a lesbian relationship, which is really beautiful, and the movie is great as well. It's with Cate Blanchett as Carol, and seriously, who doesn't love Cate Blanchett? And we're getting to it. Are you as excited as I am? My absolute favorite book of the year is Brooklyn by Colm Tóibín. I know, another one where I'm late to the party. This was published a few years ago. I'm sure you know it because there's been a movie which has been quite big, starring Saoirse Ronan. But I didn't know neither the movie nor the book. I just knew another book by Colm Tóibín and I wanted to read more from him. So I picked up Brooklyn and I was just, you know, it was mind-blowing. I don't know, I love this book so much. It's, in some ways, it's comparable to Carol because it's also set in New York, probably also around the 1950s, when a lot of Irish people migrated to New York to find work, which is what Eilish, our main character, does. She she moves from Ireland to New York as a young girl to find work there because, you know, there's a lot of poverty in Ireland and famine as well. So Eilish comes over to New York all alone and she's just trying to build a life there. And in the beginning, you know, she's homesick, she wants to go home, but then she meets a man, which I know it sounds cheesy and boring, but it's really not that. It's, first of all, the love story between her and this man Tony, whom she meets in New York, is beautiful. It's absolutely really just very cute. But then something happens back in Ireland which forces Eilish to go back for a while, and you know, going back is really hard for her because suddenly she doesn't know so clearly anymore where does she belong, what place she calls home, and she's torn between these things, and in the end she has to just make a decision. And it's kind of sad, but it's also very beautiful because in my eyes she has made the right decision in the end, which is good because I like happy endings, even though, yeah. And it's just beautiful. Also, you know, Colm Tóibín, he's so talented. He's also one of the few male authors whose female characters I like. He's kind of famous for the women he writes, and I just think it's always like it's a big achievement for a man to write a good woman, because I think I couldn't write a good male character at all. And he, you know, Kong Tae-bin, he just does a really great job. His characters are so well rounded and so likable and believable. It's just absolutely fantastic. So Brooklyn is my number one top and favorite read of 2017, and everybody who hasn't read it has to read it and then watch the movie, because Saoirse Ronan is awesome, seriously. These were my top 10 books of 2017. I'm hoping that I'm gonna read a lot of awesome books in 2018 as well. And do let me know if you have any recommendations for me to read in 2018. Maybe tell me what your favorite books were this year. And I'm seeing you probably next year. So happy New Year's and all of that. I'll see you soon. Bye.